Good morning, wrestling fans, and welcome to another special edition of PWR today with not the man they call Meathead, Matthew Thomas and Linda Kay. Good morning, Linda. How are you doing?
I am doing tremendous, Matthew Thomas. This is 3 mornings in a row with you. I'm ready to talk some NXT today, baby.
It's like a hat trick. And just for those people
Mm-hmm.
listening at home that probably are tuning in today, not to hear the NXT recap, but to hear the latest update on the man they call Meathead, we have upon good sources that the man they call Meathead is doing very well and feasting on applesauce, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah, and ironically, I believe he had some Mott's applesauce. No
He
sponsorship there,
did.
but you are the Mott's, so
I,
ironically.
That's very true, and I bet it was a situation where they were going to give him some kind of off-brand or generic applesauce, and he basically refused food until they gave in and said, "We're going to give you, the top quality, top tier, top shelf stuff," and that's the Mott's applesauce. So yeah, along with your bouquet of flowers and your spoiled milk and your summer
Mm-hmm.
sausages, feel free to go ahead and send that to Meathead's personal address, which you'll have to go back in the archives and get that. We can't give that away, but just one time, so you'll have to go back and review your PWR today this week to get the man they call Meathead's personal address to send him whatever you want to send him, or just to show up on his doorstep. So we do wish the man they call Meathead a speedy recovery, and the word on the street is he might be gracing the fans with his presence here before too long.
Yeah, and you know what? If you do decide to show up on his doorstep to give him your own personal well wishes, he just might be sporting some special T-shirts. Those
It,
T-shirts may be collar and elbow T-shirts. And maybe he'll have on that Irish Whip T-shirt. Maybe he'll have that Festus T-shirt. Perhaps a Good Brothers shirt. Perhaps a Shad Gaspard shirt. Meathead might be sporting that collar and elbow T-shirt just like you can. And you can do that by going to collarandelbowbrand.com, where you can get the latest and greatest in wrestling street fashions. And Matthew, there's also some special Halloween themed T-shirts on the site right now as well. Go to collarandelbowbrand.com and save 10% off your order simply using promo code LindaK. And that's LINDAKAY.
Well, and I would think too, we got the Halloween collar and elbow gear, but we are heading into the holiday season, and I would absolutely love to. I said heading and collar and elbow house, no head. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. It just came to me just subconsciously. My psyche said, that'd be a great segue. But I would not mind some Christmas gear, to get really festive for the holiday season.
Yeah, some collar and elbow Christmas sweaters.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Although the thing of it is, you could not go to an ugly Christmas sweater party in a collar and elbow sweater, because the collar and elbow sweater would never be ugly.
No, no, no. It's just, to sport, to feel festive.
So, Linda, before we get into exactly what happened last night on NXT, I want to get your rundown. You typically are not on the Wednesday morning show, so we have not really talked to you since NXT went Technicolor, since we went to
Yeah.
NXT 3 or 4 weeks in. We're 3 or 4 weeks in now. What is kind of your take overall on the new appearance and the new feel of NXT?
Well, I like that it's really differentiating itself from any of the other weekly episodic shows on
Yeah.
cable television. And I think since it is on a different night than it has been on, and it's not going head to head with AEW anymore, I think it's great to change things up, and not just with the colors and the logo and the music, but
Yeah.
just the whole show as a whole. Um, while it does focus more on the newer up and coming talent, that's okay. This is giving up and coming talent, enhancement talent, a chance to get that pedestal they may not normally get except maybe in a squash match or just a quick one-off 1-minute match. They are getting some supreme television time in a much wider audience than they probably ever had. And I like that it, again, differentiating it from any of the other shows. Some may not like this new format. While I, can enjoy this even with the bright colors. I mean, I'm getting used to that. That is a little different because I did become very accustomed to the black and the gold. However, because it is branching off from any of the other shows, I think it's a unique way to do that by changing the whole set. Okay, cool. But also just changing the whole format pretty much. But you're still, putting in parts of what NXT is known for. And, and that is to showcase your upcoming stars while having some of your current champions help elevate them as well.
So now that we're almost a month in, kind of my general assessment, you think of the original NXT as, okay, you've got younger, some, coming up from the independents talent. It was more of the presentation was almost more of that of like a Ring of Honor or something that is a much more match-based promotion. I'm feeling like now I'm getting the young talent, getting the new talent, but in a much more, this does feel much more WWE based in the fact that you're getting, and not even WWE current day. This feels almost like late 80s, early 90s WWF in the fact that you're getting much more character based. And when I say character, I mean, you've got the mobster, you've got, a handful of other people that are, okay, that's a professional wrestling character. It's not just John Doe out there who's a really good wrestler. Even one of my favorites on NXT 2.0, Duke Hudson, who appeared during the breakout tournament as, this Duke Hudson, who was a heel that could cut a really good promo. Now he's a poker player. So everybody's having a hobby and this, that, and the other. So you're going back a little bit. It's funny because in the first few weeks, I thought you're going back to a little bit more of a younger demographic. However, we've heard with some profanity and stuff in recent weeks and, people being kidnapped and whatnot, we're not necessarily going to a kid demographic. It's a very interesting hybrid feel. But before we get into last night's show, I want to get your opinion too. There's been a lot of talk of the colors and a lot of talk of the set. And yeah, that studio in there, it's very, very bright, but I don't necessarily mind the brightness. And I don't know that this is something that a lot of people have taken notice with or even really care, but go watch a Raw or a SmackDown present day, and then go on Peacock and watch a Raw from 2011, 2012. It's interesting the change that has taken place with the audience lighting. Raw and SmackDown now, pay-per-views, I noticed it when I was in Vegas for SummerSlam as well, and I thought maybe it was a difference because we were in a larger stadium. That was really the first time I'd been in person and noticed the difference in lighting, but WWE seems to be lighting their audiences a lot darker now. And I went back and I watched some stuff even prior to, the pre-COVID era and stuff. And I mean, it seems like it's been going on for several years now. And, you go back and you watch an Attitude Era show or you watch even something from, 13 or 14, you've got your fans in the lower levels with their signs and whatnot. I mean, people are visible. Now you go, and it's not just the WWE. AEW seems to have a similar type of lighting. You go and watch even something from Arthur Ashe or a Dynamite or a Rampage, you are kind of having to go on faith that there are actually people in the upper levels of the stadiums because the arenas, because the way the lighting is now is you've almost got the upper levels and everything blacked out. So it's a lot darker lighting almost in all of professional wrestling now. Like a Raw or a SmackDown, to me right now, visually, it looks a lot more reminiscent to how house shows used to look, where you would have the audience pretty much blacked out and then the spotlight in the middle of the ring. So a very different. I mean, it's not all of a sudden, but I mean, it's interesting to me. And I think part of the fact was I didn't realize it until recently that, wow, they're actually lighting the crowds a little bit darker these days.
Yeah, and, bring up a really good point when AEW was here for Dynamite for Rampage, where me and Meathead were sitting. We were in the lower level, and now you bring
Yeah.
up a good point. It was pretty dark by us, and then I'm thinking as you were speaking about the product on TV, yeah, it definitely is darker, and it's not necessarily because the upper level had it to be tarped. So
Yeah.
visually, it looked more filled. I mean, we're getting crowd a pan shot of the audiences, like
Yeah.
for AEW, for example, and you can see there's people up at the rafters, but that definitely is something I didn't really notice so much until I did hear you and Meathead talk about this not too long ago as well, and in particular about the new NXT 2.0 and how it's not just their bright colors, but just their bright room and
Yeah.
the see-through barriers for one thing. That's a little different too.
Yeah.
Instead of having an actual like cushion barrier, I'm like, all right. But I think again, just with it, just having this new landscape, that it works for me. It
Yeah.
is a little different, but to your point also of the characters, yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I'm really enjoying this. Because it is something different. I mean, there's still some familiarity in that. Okay, I know who that person is. I know
Right.
the landscape, the champions. I know NXT. However, there are all these new talents as well, and introducing them to all of us as a character does bring more interest and does bring a whole like WWF superstars feel, a wrestling challenge
Yeah.
feel,
Yes.
and I'm
Yes.
digging that. That's a really
You
good
know,
point that you're putting to
and
perspective, Matthew.
what I'm finding, Linda, is when I'm watching NXT now, and it's been an ongoing process week to week. There are, weeks when I watch it, and as you've heard probably in the show, where I'm wondering what in the world they're doing. But where I think I'm at right now, a month or so into the run, when I'm watching NXT, I'm not thinking about Raw or SmackDown or even AEW at this point. I'm actually thinking about, okay, this is unique. It's not like any of the other things. So I'm watching this as its own self contained program, which I don't think is a bad thing. And I think that might be, exactly what they're going for there. So, yeah, I mean, it continues to progress week to week. And we'll see how it progresses this week. Last night kicked off with a match that I was looking forward to. Tommaso Ciampa going up against one of my favorites on NXT 2.0, Joe Gacy. Now, the stipulation here was if Gacy was to defeat Ciampa, he would be added to the match at Halloween Havoc against Ciampa and Braun Breaker. And got probably 11, 12 minutes. It went through one commercial break. I enjoyed the match. We haven't seen Gacy actually wrestle much. Gacy, however, was not successful over Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa picking up the victory, although we did have some interaction at the end between Gacy and a gentleman that we saw in the audience last week. There was actually some physicality last night. However, once Gacy basically laid his hand on him, that seemed to kind of diffuse the situation. So Ciampa just overall showing terrible sportsmanship, would not shake Gacy's hand, would not give him a congratulatory hug after the match. Gacy just wants to make sure that everybody knows there doesn't have to just be one winner. Ciampa didn't want any of that, but his new friend from the audience seemed to be a little bit more on the fence there. So, Linda, your thoughts in this opening match and just the Joe Gacy character in general?
Yeah, I was surprised that he was given this opportunity to just insert himself into the NXT title match at Halloween Havoc, but it was nice for us to see Joe Gacy getting more in-ring action. We can see a bit more of his skills in the ring, and then he did not win, which was fine because the mystery man, it actually helped showcase the power of Joe Gacy even more outside of the ring. His effect on others, as we saw just a touch on the face, made the mystery man just run off. Okay. Only made him stop him from hitting Gacy as well. Um, interesting way to kick off NXT, which I didn't mind because even though Gacy didn't win the match, he won in that it's showing his strengths and his effect on others. So, the way it ended between him and Ciampa at the very end too makes me feel like it's maybe not 100% the end between the two of them.
Yeah. And you make a very good point because this opening segment, Joe Gacy was the star, and he was the star in a segment where you had the NXT champion wrestling. Ciampa was there. In ring, great overall Ciampa performance, but you had Gacy kick off the show with his promo. You had Gacy there one-on-one with the NXT champion, and then you had it bookended with Gacy's interaction there at the very end. So they were prominently featuring Gacy start, middle, call that the match, and then the very end of the segment. So I think they know that they've got something here. They've got something that interests people, and I look forward to see where they go with Gacy in the upcoming weeks. We would also see some tag team action, Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner defeating Pete Dunne and Ridge Holland. And then we referenced this a little bit earlier. One of my favorites, Duke Hudson picking up the win over Grayson Willer there. And throwing a little poker chip at the very end. So I guess Duke Hudson's the poker player now?
Maybe he shared his table with Happy Corbin a couple of weeks ago in Vegas too.
Yes. There's a lot of people. That would be a really good segue there. If that's the, kind of just if they run in the same circles, because we know how Corbin's luck turned around in Vegas. And I got so excited talking about Joe Gacy kicking off the show. I think I buried the lead, Linda. There was a kidnapping involving Hit Row at the beginning of the show. Am I correct?
Yeah. So NXT technically started with seeing 3/4 of Hit Row walking in and them discussing how they haven't heard from Ashanti the Adonis, what was going on, and then they get jumped by Legado del Fantasma, and Swerve doesn't hear this or notice at first because he's got his headphones in, but he turns around to see them beating up or taking Top Dollar and B-Fab, putting them into this truck, this vehicle, this SUV, running off or driving off with Swerve chasing after. I'm like, did we just see a kidnapping take place in broad daylight there? But they did that obviously because Santos Escobar was going to have his North American title match against Isaiah Swerve Scott. So obviously they helped to the favor of Legado del Fantasma. But yeah, that was quite interesting. At least, we didn't get any upfront death threats.
Murder threats. And here's the thing, too. You're assuming, once they put him in there, you don't know that anything bad's going to happen. They might be like taking him to a surprise party or something. Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. So I think that, we don't want to jump to conclusions before, before we get the big reveal there. Although, do you remember, Linda, it must have been, was it like 2008, 2009 TNA? There was an angle I don't think they ever paid off where something similar happened to Samoa Joe. He got thrown into a van by 4 or 5 masked men. And then like 3 or 4 weeks went by, and then Joe just shows up and the whole ankle gets dropped. But Samoa Joe was once kidnapped by ninjas.
Oh. Well, remember not too long ago on NXT when Austin Theory was kidnapped by Dexter Lumis, or in that van, and then all of a sudden,
that's right.
Was back, and it was like nothing really happened. He was happy, but also it just kind of was.
But it worked out. It worked out pretty well. It worked out pretty well for him because didn't he just go to Loomis's house and he like ate Fruit Loops or something, right?
Yeah, he was very happy.
So yeah, maybe that's NXT's specialty.
That's what they were doing. They were taking him to Dexter Loomis's house. Oh my gosh.
Who, although we've seen Indy in tag team action, like we saw last night, she picked up the victory. We haven't seen Dexter in like 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Well, she did give him the kiss on the cheek before her match, but that was it.
Oh yeah.
He hasn't been in the
Yeah.
ring very long, but I mean, they just keep, alluding about how wild and action packed their honeymoon was. But other than that, he hasn't been back in the ring since the wedding. Maybe he's still
Yeah.
recovering. I think they were kind of getting at that as well.
Yeah, I hope maybe he injured himself in some capacity.
Yeah.
Maybe he's on the injured reserve. I wonder if he got when he was. You know what? We'll have to when Meathead comes back. We'll have to ask and see if maybe they were at the same medical facility.
Oh, okay. Perhaps.
It's very possible. Well, that kidnapping angle actually took us to our main event. We had Swerve Scott going up against Santos Escobar for the North American title. In a really solid closing match. Swerve Scott picking up the victory. However, just when you thought the show was over and the signature was getting – actually, it wasn't the signature. What you were seeing in the corner was the previews of the Chucky show that was coming up after NXT. Just when you thought it was all said and done, we actually got a surprise match as Carmello Hayes cashed in the contract that he won as being the winner of the NXT Breakout Tournament. And we go off the air with Carmello Hayes as your new NXT North American champion. Linda, what did you think about the match between Escobar and Guy? The ultimate surprise there at the end.
Yeah, it was a definite surprise, but I popped. I did. I really wasn't expecting Carmelo Hayes to, I was going to say cash in his briefcase, but that same effect, that same pop. I mean, the breakup star, the contract, I guess I wasn't really sure the full legalities of it and that it can be turned in, I guess is the right word for this now, at any time. I know they came out to help, or him and Trick Williams came out to help out Isaiah Swerve Scott to actually win that match, but it still didn't faze me about what was about to happen. They were talking about how Isaiah Swerve Scott brings the North American title to SmackDown, but instead he gets hit from behind, and then I'm like, oh wait, is this a cash in or a turn in? And indeed it was. So I also liked how Isaiah Swerve Scott still kicked out after the initial takedown move, or I'm not sure what Carmello's move's called, but I'm glad that he kicked out, thinking, oh no, he might still have a chance. But in the end, Carmello Hayes is now the new NXT North American champion. But I will say, I also noticed that during that 3 count, Chucky appeared in the corner of my TV, stabbing in unison with the ref's 3 count.
Yes.
I even wound that, and I was like, okay,
that was creepy. That was a Domino's pizza cutter moment there.
Yes.
I certainly hope that was planned, because if it wasn't, that was very, very creepy.
Yes, so that was a double pop for me last night, seeing that happen as well. But Carmello Hayes looking strong. I think this is a great way to pass along the torch, the title, to another talented superstar who can take the reins at NXT 2.0 while Swerve Scott makes his way over to SmackDown, and hopefully with the rest of Hit Row, because right now they're still missing.
Yes, hopefully so. My goodness. And good job on the NXT announce team too for talking about him potentially taking that title over to SmackDown, because I was thinking he's definitely got to drop it before he leaves. But then when they mentioned that, I mean, they actually got me to the point where I'm thinking, oh wow, does SmackDown really need another title? Why couldn't you take that title to Raw, since Raw is 3 hours? So they got me invested in that point, that I was not thinking about, the obvious there in the cash in or sign in. And, I think they've got a good idea there. The briefcase, you cash it in and just hand the briefcase in. But when you have the contract, I mean, there's a few more pieces involved. You have to, have the contract, you have to sign it. There has to be a pen present. So I think you can potentially, build much more anticipation in this situation where you've got a contract on a clipboard. There's a lot more variables and a lot more coordination that has to go into effect to make this thing happen.
So could it possibly have backfired on Carmello Hayes, like how Finn Balor lost out his chance at SummerSlam when, at the time, Baron Corbin interrupted his contract signing, and then John Cena grabbed the clipboard and put his name in place of it.
Yes, you could do that. And I say you take it to another level too. You have to also have a notary present before you cash it in.
Yeah. That is true
Yes.
as well.
Yes. Because we don't need two signatures, we just need one. But yeah, I think that's what you do. You have to have the contract there and a notary present. I think they've got all kinds of potential that they can go with this situation in the future. Well, that was NXT for last night, and a little bit of a different night tonight. No Dynamite. So I imagine that whatever incarnation of PWR today we have coming your way tomorrow, I imagine we will find something to talk about. There'll be plenty of things going on in the world of professional wrestling, or if not, we'll just go very in-depth and detail about Meathead's procedure and the ins and outs of what the medical facilities are looking like right now for Meathead's experience there. And I'm sure that there's a lot of interesting conversation headed your way later this week on PWR Today. So for Linda Kay and the man they call Meathead, wherever you may be, this is Matthew Thomas, and we'll talk to you soon.